the opportunity and the pleasure of being here for our 99th Coffee and Conversation. Just amazing when we add it all up. We've been doing our Coffee and Conversations since 2012, and today we have Lloyd Wade. Lloyd, speaking of World War II veterans, is a veteran of the 11th Airborne Division, and within that division was with the 127th Engineering Battalion, or combat engineers. And Lloyd has a great story to tell us today. Now, I will warn you, I had the pleasure of sitting with Lloyd and getting his bio information to create the handout for today. He's already told me that he is not a dynamic speaker, okay? And he
I only talk when somebody talks to me.
That's right. So today we will ask Lloyd questions and Lloyd will respond, okay? So that's the way it's going to go. But nevertheless, Lloyd has a great story to tell us about the exploits of the 11th Airborne Division in New Guinea and the Philippines, and then of course the raid on Los Baños, the Japanese prison camp. That wasn't so much a prison camp for Allied soldiers, but some Allied soldiers, but mostly civilians. Some nurses, but the raid was one that has gone down in the history of the U.S. military as one of the most successful prison camp raids of all time in terms of the success of the raid, and Lloyd will tell us about that in a few minutes. So I have some map. Pictures that will show later during the talk, both about the raid and some other pictures that Lloyd will fill us in on with regard to various campaigns in the Philippines and New Guinea, and also the fact that the 11th Airborne Division was one of the first U.S. divisions, if not the first U.S. division, to be part of the occupation forces in Japan right after the conclusion of the war in the Pacific. So anyway, having said all that, we want to also thank you guys for being here and to let you know that we have some speakers coming up. Our next speaker on the 12th of March. So this will be our last speaker in February. Then in March we have Scott Stalker. Scott was a Army Vietnam veteran who served in the medical corps between 67 and 71. He was in Vietnam, I think the year 67 to 68, and was again in the medical corps and served in the area of Quang Tri in Vietnam. On the 26th of March, we have, I think, a very good speaker. Her name is Sarah Plummer Taylor. She was a Marine Corps intelligence officer, did 2 tours in Iraq, and right now she's very prominent locally in the Denver Metro, Boulder County area, doing a lot of good work with veterans groups, and has her own business with regard to working with various groups with regard to veterans work and health coaching and a lot of workshops. As you know, we survive here in the museum with your generous donations. There's donation jars all around the building. Obviously, you've already taken part in coffee and donuts, which is one of the things we do very well around here. Help yourself for some more. Restrooms are over here on the left, going past the office. And for those of you who haven't been here before, stick around afterwards. Lloyd's got some great reference books here from the 11th and the 127th for you to look at. Feel free to ask him questions about any of those reference documents. Also, when we get into the talk, please check and make sure that your cell phones are either turned off or on quiet mode or airplane mode or what have you. And also, if you guys didn't sign in the logbook out in front, please make sure to do that before you leave today, so that we can get credit with the city for your visit. And also, we have another museum here in the neighborhood up on 10th going west, the Depot Museum. So if you haven't seen that one, it's worthwhile checking out. So that's about it. Any questions for me before we get started with Lloyd? Okie doke. So I'll turn it over to Lloyd, and thank you again very much for coming today. Appreciate it. I'm going to hook Lloyd up here, and then we'll get started. Okie doke.
I see everyone's got a pamphlet here, and that pretty well tells you here is what you're looking for, and tells you about from my time I started up until I finished. And that's the way from a child up to didn't discharge from the service. So on the Los Baños, that's one of the, I think, the prize thing of what we accomplished over there. And Colin Powell said it was one of the best operations that ever existed. And here's some stuff here. It's got that in it. It says the Los Baños. And I do have some tapes that I'm going to leave a copy here with you, and then you can make some or keep some or whatever, just so I get them back.
Okay.
So, like I said a while ago, I'm not a speaker. I'm a listener, and I'll listen to your questions and try to answer anything you might want to talk about. There's a gentleman sitting here in the front row that came to me a while ago and said his father was in the 11th Airborne. And I said, yeah. I said, I got some stuff there. He says, my father got a Silver Star. I said, if he got a Silver Star, it's in that book. And he found it. So if there's any questions, we get started. The sooner we start, the better we'll finish. Anyone have any questions at all?
So Lloyd, so talk about first your training, where it started. Just start from Tacoma, Georgia, and then go from Georgia to McCall to Camp Polk, and then from there to the beginning.
Well, I'll start back at Fort Harrison.
Okay, all right.
And I ran around with, at that time, a friend of mine who was the same age, and you know what 17-year-old guys do. So we'd been friends for a couple of years, and all at once it dawned on us, we're either going to get called in the service or we're going to have to volunteer. So I told Ben, I said, look, I'm going to volunteer because I want to get what I want, not what they want to give me. And I said, are you going with me? Sure. Well, we decided to go over on a Monday and volunteer. Went over to Fort Harrison, sat in a big room, and there's maybe 50 sitting in there. So they asked for volunteers for the parachute troops. That's what and I told Ben, that's what I want. Are you going to go with me? Yeah. Well, when they asked for volunteers, my hand went up like that, and I looked around, there wasn't another hand. Not even Ben. He wouldn't cry. I said, what's wrong with you? Oh, I don't want to go. But at the meantime, what got me started on it, I had read a little about it, and he was in the 82nd, and that was made up early at the 101st and 82nd, and we come in third. He was on furlough, and I looked at his uniform and all that. Dawned on me that's what I'm going to do. So I actually volunteered to go to the 82nd. And we got to Toccoa, Georgia, and there's about 500 of us there. So we had to run the mountain and do all that kind of stuff, and they washed all of us out but 300. Oh, that's all they had left. So they said that the next day we'd be into the 82nd. Well, someone woke up that night, I guess, and thought of it, they're going to have another division. So that stopped all of our transfers and everything, and we went in and made up the 11th. That's the way it got started, and that was in 43. And we left there. Of course, Toccoa, Georgia has a large mountain down there. And I was raised on a farm, and not bragging, but I was pretty solid. And my name being Wade, I was last on everything. The W, you just wait, and that's it. And I was waiting on it, and there's only 2 or 3 of us left. And they left, and I was the only one, so then I started. And they had eyes along the road, see these instructors, whether you was going to make it or not make it. And if you couldn't run that mountain, you was washed out and gone. And I got up to the first inspector. He says, you don't need to go any farther, go back. I guess I was running easy or something, you know. And then we were, like I say, we used to go to the 82nd, and they decided that they would start up the 11th. So I was one of the first 300 that started in that, make it up. Took our basic training there, and then we, after the basic training, went to Fort Benning for school, jump school. And the 127th Engineers and the 511th Infantry was the 2 jumping units in the division. The rest of them were gliders. Well, them gliders nothing but plywood boxes. I didn't want any part. But after and later on down the line, after it got overseas, why Gerald Swain made a jumping unit out of the whole division, which was the way it should have been to start with. So that was the start of our battle, which lasted till the war ended. And that's about it. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, if I can.
Do you remember your first actual jump and where you were?
Yes, I do. Your first jump was at school, your first 5. You had to make 5 jumps before you got your wings. The first jump you make is the easiest one of all. Now, why it's easy is that you go through a training, you go through mock towers, and you go to the body of a plane, jump out of it, and you know, it's automatic, you're doing things. And you're taught that you're going to count 1, 2, 3, and it should open, because you're jumping a static line. And you don't remember any of that, you know, the first jump. And they bring you in early the next day and put you into what they call a sweat shed. And you sit down in there and nobody's saying a word. And it's what it's called. You sweat it out. And the reason the second jump is the hardest one to make is you've now made your first one. Nothing happened. But you don't remember it. And you really don't. You don't remember that. You get to thinking, well, if something went wrong, what would I do? So you don't know because you can't remember it. So the second one is the hardest one to make. After that, it becomes transportation. Now, we dedicated Lornburg Air Base in North Carolina, and all the brass from D.C. was down there to see that dedication. And I happened to be jumping second and was jumping a camouflage chute. They were testing those out at that time too. So, and I went out, and we got 1,200 feet. Well, that's pretty high, you know, to be dedications or even practice and anything. Most generally around 500 feet. So you got out and gone. And I jumped, and you get, after you made a few jumps, you quit counting. You just go out the door, and once you do that, tighten up, take the shock. I done like that. Nothing happened. And I turned and looked up, and the chute was trailing me. So I thought, well, I got 1,200 feet, you know. Got time to do it. So I tried to shake out the shroud line, see. Would not shake out. Wouldn't come apart. So I rode it just a little farther. I could do that and still have time. If my reserve didn't open, it wouldn't make any difference anyway, see. So my reserve opened, and I was the only one on the ground. Now remember, you're dedicating all the brass in the world's there, wanting to see a perfect, and I screwed it up. So, nothing was said. I went over to the equipment chute, broke it open, it was down. The rest of the guys were still coming down. Nothing was said. We got back to McCall. I was calling Captain Wayne to see me. And he says, what was you trying to prove? I said, nothing. He says, I should just transfer you right now. And that woke me up. He says, you was showing off up there. You wanted to be seen, and on and on and on he went, you know. So and they teach us what to do. And he's right. I didn't do what they taught me to do. So I didn't do that anymore. Of course, it didn't have malfunction anymore either. But I think we only had, in our whole division, I think out of all the everything, and in school, we only lost 3 in malfunctions, which was, you know, pretty good. So, anything else?
Well, what were you supposed to have done that you didn't do?
Well,
I mean, you were hanging out there with no deployed chute. What were you supposed to do?
Well, what I'd done, we was all jumping.
Yeah.
Okay, I looked up and my was a streamer.
Yeah.
When it should have been open.
Right.
That's when I should have pulled my reserve.
Yeah.
But I rode it a little farther and a little farther, and actually I seen leaves on the trees, and I thought,
Okay.
Of course, it didn't make any difference. That sucker didn't open the reserve, it, you know.
Okay.
So, but I think in that book, somewhere there's kid that in our outfit we call him the cat. You know, he got 5 lives. He had a malfunction. Another kid grabbed his chute while he was falling. And the kid that grabbed his chute, it tore all the flesh out of the inside of his hands, but he let him down. So I think the picture's in this book here. Oh. And then he went on to using a machine gun nest, and they was going to reset the machine gun, move on up. Well, it had a belt in it, and didn't take the belt out. He picked it up, barrel like that, pulled it up, and it went off. And he had grenades pockets here, you know, and a bandolier on. The bullet hit one of those grenades, set it off. It knocked him at least 20 feet away. All he got was a little bruise. Went through the whole thing, got discharged, come home, walked across the street, and the car hit him.
That's not fair.
No. So, life's short sometimes. So, anything else? I can tell you where we went, what happened, a lot of it. We left Briscoe. We was 32 days on the water and got to New Guinea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the last place you want to go, is New Guinea. And we went into training there. Well, we opened up, built us a school so all of us could be jumpers. And nothing to do in New Guinea. We take a jeep and go down to the base, stuff like that. And of course and if you notice, it says in that thing, the angels. Now they've been talk, you know, how we got that name. Well, we actually got it from, as far as I can know, is Los Baños, when a nurse gave us that name. But it's been said that we got it in different ways. Our general gave us to us. Well, I never heard that one, but until I was out of the service. But always staging in New Guinea, we got to go down to the bay, and ships had been sunk in the bay there. We'd go out, swim and stuff like that, get into the sharks. About all there was too. And we left New Guinea then for Leyte. Now we are an airborne unit. For our jumps, we practice it and everything, and we go up there and have an invasion, which is amphibious. We thought we were supposed to jump, not run through the water, you know.
What kind of ships did you transport on from the Guinea?
LSTs. Regular, and we, on the boat that I had, we had a big D8 dozer, which I operated. And we also had there was a monkey that was shot in New Guinea. And we brought him in, and what he had was his front leg was just dangling, been shot. So we took it to the captain, medical department. He put the monkey to sleep, cut off his leg, bandaged it up, well, kept him around, and he whittled him out a wooden leg. So he got his name as Peg Leg Pete. We call him. While we was there, the mating season and stuff like that happening, and we was in the mess tent and there's some other monkeys around there. Well, what happened, they get in a fight. He'd take his wooden leg and crack him upside the head with it. Well, anyway, we took him on. He was on the ship I was in. And the South China Sea's a rough place. I mean, it's like this all the time. And we was getting ready. We'd been all night, and it was starting to break day, and we could hear the Missouri battleship was shelling. We could hear all that. So I got to looking for Pete. Couldn't find him. And I'm going to be ready to go in a minute, you know. So I'm going to go up and start this dozer up. And I go up there, and I'd hung my steel helmet on the handle. And Pete was up there, he's seasick. He was using my helmet. So, but those are the fun things that happen, you know. And I like to talk about those more than I do other things. I think there's a lot of other things that we don't need to talk about, you know. And personally, you know, I think we as people was just as bad as the other people were. Now, we weren't no angels like that paper says. No question about it. But all said and done, we were just as bad as they were. So I don't think that we can sit back, because they're human beings, and they was forced to do what they were doing. Not because they liked it, because they was forced to go. So was we. But a lot of us enjoyed it. I don't know. So.
Did you think that way then? Or did you have to...
Yes, I did. I never thought that an individual, when he was forced to do something, that could be blamed for it. I think if you're here and somebody forces you to do something, they should be responsible, not you. Now, that's only my belief, huh? So, and naturally you're out there and it's either you or them, and you know that. So you don't forget that. And they had a lot of things they'd done. Of course, they was taught. You know, and the thing that we had to look for was a person never dies with their face in the mud. They'll turn their face. So when you've seen someone, their face is straight down like this, he ain't dead. 9 times out of 10. So there's things you can watch for. And you learn it pretty quick. But being responsible, I don't see how you can make an individual responsible for something like that.
So Leyte Gulf is a pretty famous battle. Can you say what your role was in that?
The what?
The Leyte Gulf that you said, the Battle of Leyte Gulf. Is that?
Leyte?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, Leyte is down the south end of the Philippines. Mm-hmm. And Tacloban is, we were north, I'll call it north, we were up from Tacloban at Nasaboo. Yeah, Nasaboo.
Here's Nasaboo right here, right here. That's Nasaboo, and then here's Leyte right here.
Yeah. Okay, Tacloban is right along here on Leyte, and we was in Nasaboo, right there. And the Japs had, it actually occupied airstrip between Masabu and Tacloban called Lipa. And I believe that's the name of it. And we had secured that from them. And actually we was getting ready to extend the strip a little bit so a heavier plane could come in. All that come in was these L4s and L5s. And they wanted to get at least a P-40 in there, something like that, so they could get close to the fight. And we were, in fact, there's a little stream of water run down by the airstrip. And some of us decided we'd go down that stream of water and take a bath. So we got down there and taking a bath, and all at once we heard planes. And looked over, and it looked like C-47s. And C-47 shouldn't be there. We're the only ones jumped on. It was the Japanese jumping on us. So they jumped on us before we jumped on them. But that ended that night. Next morning, there wasn't many of them left. So they lost around 7,000 on Leyte. And I think if you read one of these books, on Leyte, and of course, going ahead and including Luzon, that they like 200,000. That's a lot of people. That answer. But Leyte was probably as tough as one we went into. It was much tougher than Luzon. Luzon was spread out farther. Naturally, they had more things going. But Leyte didn't have nothing on it but a few little airstrips, a bunch of jungle, and a bunch of mud. And I actually slept in foxholes on Leyte that I had to stick my helmet in the side of the wall so the water wouldn't, half of your belly or body's covered up in water when you're sleeping. So that's how much jungle there was around. We used to make fun of the mosquitoes, call them mail planes. They'd be going to carry the mail. And I got malaria while I was there. And still today they don't take my blood or won't. I don't know why. But they say that I might be a carrier, just keeping it. And if they give that to someone that had it, I could give it to them and they'd be gone. So, but I've lived pretty good without it. And I got it on Luzon. We were on a patrol and I got feeling bad. So I told him, I said, I'll just crawl in this treetop. Somebody cover me over with leaves so they can't find me. Somebody go back and get the medics, let them come in and pick me up. Well, it took them about 2 hours. They had me out there and we had a medic set up in a church. And I walked up the front of the church, and I'll never forget, I carried 7 steps. And then I sat down. Captain, which was the medical doctor, he walked out, put his hand on this shoulder here, asked me how I felt. I just keeled over. So after that, I don't remember a thing until I woke up in the tent. They had oxygen tanks sitting around and everything. And I had I think it was 106.4 temperature. And that's pretty high. But I got by all right. I weighed, when I come out of there, had malaria. See? And I come out of there, I've weighed 130 pounds.
How long were you ill?
Pardon?
How long were you ill?
I was, I was 2 days getting in to the hospital. I was in the hospital 2 weeks. And then I was setting every 30 days to come home. And you're not ready yet. And the third, which would be 3 months, I went in and I'd gained over 5 pounds. The doctor said, we're not sending you home, stay here. So I almost got to come home, but I didn't.
How much did you weigh before you got sick?
I've always weighed right at 190, you know. Still today, I think I'm 192, something like that. I've been lucky that way. I just, I hold the same weight practically all the time.
Have you ever heard the term May West?
Yes, that's what well, what a May West is when your chute opens, it is caused a lot of time by the prop on the plane. The pilot in the plane, when they'll give you the red light, and that means you're getting ready. And then he's supposed to cut his engine. Now they're traveling C-47s at about 150. They'll cut those engines and try to drop down to between 80 and 90. And then you're supposed to jump. They'll just tilt them a little bit. And they're into a stall. And they can only hold them there just a few minutes. And you jump. Well, if they rev up those engines, have to rev them up or anything, before all of them gets out, when you go out and you turn and go down, that chute comes off and goes this way, open like this. And the prop from those engines hits that. And what they do, they blow panels in them. Now, when you blow a panel in one of them, you've lost stabilization in your chute, and you'll go faster to the ground. And that blown panel is a May West.
The guys explain to me sometimes we get twisted and we look like a bra.
Well, that's probably somebody wishing it was.
I think he was breathing bad.
Something, yeah, because no.
When you're actually parachuting down, are you how much control do you have, and are you trying to hit a certain landing?
Well, yeah, you always pick out something, but you have quite a bit. I never tried to guide, of course, into a jump area. It was more or less the speed control that instead of guiding. Now, if you want to go forward, see, you're like this on your shroud lines. They sit like this. They're up front and back. Now then, if you want to pick up speed and move ahead, you go up in front shroud lines. That tilts your chute like that and causes it to go. Now, what I was most interested in is judging my distance, because if I get hurt hitting the ground, that's where I'm going to be. So I would always go up all four of them and pull them down, lock in like this, and about 20 foot off the ground, I'd turn them loose. And that chute will go, pow! And when it does that, it stops you dead still. And there's times you come in, you stand up like I have now. And then if you get to oscillating though, wind or something like that, and you get to swinging, you got to cut that if you can, because your body comes in like this and misses the ground by a foot or 2 feet. Then you're up here. Then as you go through the swing, you're up about 10 or 12 feet. When you come back, you're totally loose. And I've seen heels off of boots fly through the air. And that's where the guys get their hips hurt, legs, stuff like that. But it was more or less governed the speed. But if you wanted to go right, you used your right shrouds, left shrouds, just like you're driving it. And if you wanted to slow it down, if it was going too fast for you, climb up your shroud line and then turn them loose. And maybe you had to go up the second time. But you didn't have time for all of that, you know.
Did any of that parachute technology change during the course of the war, or was it?
No, it's all the same, you know.
So they teach you that, or is a lot of that experience?
Pardon?
They teach you that when you're training, or?
Yes, yeah. You go to Benning and you take all of the calisthenics and get in shape, and then the last week you're there, you make 5 jumps. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then you're home free. But you go through a lot of exercises in Benning. I mean, bunches. And the main thing about the school down there, if you're an officer and you go into that school, now see, you're an officer, but you not jump, you're going to school to jump. They strip you of your brass and all of that, and you're a private. Just like everybody else. No one person is no different. And you know when you get in combat that everyone is exactly the same. They've been there, they've done that. You know, back. Now, he was a nice guy, one of the colonels that went through the whole war with us. He went to school with us. Of course, he'd never jumped or anything. They took all of his brass off of him. And we had Indian clubs tore on them, you know, to strengthen our shoulders. And he was in the back of the exercise, and there was a water fountain back there. And he decided for some reason he just turned around and went to the water fountain and got him a drink and come back and start. Instructor kept going on, and finally he stopped. Said, oh, by the way, he said, Colonel, and that's something you very seldom hear. He says, we're going to take a 15, most days 10-minute breaks. He says, we're going to take a 15-minute break. That is all the rest of us. Said, you will go around this packing shed, run it, round and around it, and all the way around, all the time while we're taking a break, which we're going to take 15 minutes, you're going to say, I'm a bad colonel, I won't get a drink. Now, that stuff went on. I mean, there was just, a lot of it was fun, but those instructors, they're kind of tough.
Lloyd, question over there.
I'm assuming the guys who are jumping now have a lot different kind of equipment. The guys that land on the 50-yard line before the game and that kind of thing. It's a whole different.
They have, and actually our military chutes are different now. I went to brag at this flag ceremonies, and I got to watch them. And see, we jumped out of C-47s. That's all they had. The C-46s had a small door. You couldn't, with all your equipment and everything, you had trouble getting out the door. But the 7s had a large door and stuff like that, and you could get out. But I went down there, and they jumped of the C-130s. And they jumped, and guys just kept coming. We could get 16 probably at the most out of a stick. And they can get hundreds now. And their chute is like a taper. Ours was round. Those are flat. And they guide those things like you drive a car. A lot of difference in the equipment. And that chute that malfunctioned on me, it was caused by paint. Now, yeah, you're going to say, what the heck they do with paint? Well, all the chutes that we used was white. When we first started, silk. Well, silk opens too fast. So they went to nylon. Nylon will breathe, and the chute has a channel. When you pack the chute, you got a channel that you want to keep it loose, packing it, because that is what catches the air so it can get out of it. If you pack that tight, you're going to be longer opening. So you want that to open quick. But they thought that they could, all white chutes, they'd go to color, camouflage. So I don't know where they got it, but anyway, the stick that I was in, the first was white, the second was camouflaged. The next one was white, every other. And I was second, and I was the only one that the chute stuck on. But the paint stuck that channel together. What they decided later on and wouldn't let it open. So, but I dodged some things. Glad I did. Oh.
Did you go on to Japan?
Yes. Yeah, we went in Tatsuki. And then there was, and it might have been the one your father was in, the 88th, that went into Yokohama and Tokyo from Tatsuki. Then we took the engineers and went north to Sendai, Japan, up on the northern tip. And then I don't really know where the 187th went to, but the 511th and the 127th went north. Of course, we covered that whole side, which would be the, east side of Japan? Okay, yeah. Now,
So basically, it kind of all started from here, and then
yeah.
Okinawa, and then up there.
Philippines, Luzon. Yeah, when this here, we came in Luzon. There's something. Well, I think right, this little cove going right up there at the top,
Yeah,
right in there, right there. That's where I was at.
okay.
And then we were stretched out down on this end where we left here to get up there. But we had one bunch right at the tail end there, and then at Tsuge up here, and then on up into the northern part. And a second day that I was up there, and we was talking about a while ago about the Japanese people and things. The second day that was at Sendai, I met a Japanese young fella. He was about that time probably 18, and he invited me over to their house for dinner. And I went over, and he spoke plain English. And I asked him, I said, where'd you learn this? He graduated from Southern Cal. And then he talked to me about, he said, we knew. But he said we didn't dare to say anything, because if you did, that was it. So that's the reason I say that, Those people didn't want it either, but they had to do it.
Mr. Wade, can you describe your duties on the ground a little bit?
The what?
Duties that once you were actually on the ground, some of the duties that you might have had to perform?
Well, what you're taught, I can tell you what you're taught to do, and then I'll go and tell you mostly what you do. You're taught to, when you leave the plane, get out of there and get to the ground. When you get to the ground, you undo your chute and everything, and hide it someplace, because they could find stuff, and they don't need to find that. And, you know, you're staying 4 and 5 in a bunch. Don't ever take the whole thing and get out and go, because they could do away with all of you. And then you'd be done. But you break up in like 4 and 5 in a bunch, and all depending on what you're going to do. Whether you're going to go in, blow up something and get out, or whether you're going to set up a demolition on a trail or a road that they might be using and wait for them to come along and work on that. Now that's what you're taught to do. And what you do is when you hit the ground, you get away from that chute and keep going. Get out of there. You know, don't stand around and piddle around about hiding it. You might not have anything to hide it with. So you just try to protect yourself and the 3 or 4 guys that might be with you, and you don't go in bunches. Oh, if like say we jumped on Tagatai Ridge, well, a thing you want to do, now we jumped there with I think 6 planes, but we reduced our sticks to almost 50%. Now, they're not going to count the bodies that comes out of those planes. They're going to only count the planes. So if you want to fool them, you fly more planes and less people. I mean, that's all there is to it. And it's just little things like that that you learn. You're taught that in basic.
So you're done with your chute. You don't retrieve it or anything?
No, not unless you jump, and we did make a jump, one jump at a Perry. That's in northern Luzon. That there was no resistance. There was a Jap division there, but they wouldn't come out the mountains, and we didn't go in after them. But we jumped up there, and all the chutes were good, everything. And so we picked all the chutes up, and I'm sure the Japs up there and watched us. It's in the back of that book. Did you read?
I did not read that section.
Yeah. It's where the Jap general was getting ready to give up.
I only focused on the part about Los Baños and then some of the other early training parts.
Well, that Los Baños is actually one of the best operations that they claim has ever happened. But everything had to be on time. Had to be at 7 o'clock. Now, we put scouts in there, and we found out that the Japanese garrison there, at 7 o'clock, they went out in the field and done their calisthenics. And it's 7 o'clock. Now, we spotted them and checked them for 2 weeks. And every morning at 7, they stack their guns against the tents, get out in the field, half naked, and do their exercise. Not at 7-1 or not 1-7 or anything. It's right on the money. Now, we had to have planes. They had to be on time, 7 o'clock. We had amphibious vehicles that had to be across the bay at 7. We had to be on the road, have it set, because there was 20,000 Japs down Lake Tall, which could have been up there. And all of that must be done at 7, and that's what happened. And they caught them with their pants down. That's exactly what, yeah, that's exactly what happened. But we got 2,700 prisoners out of there, and we did not lose one person.
The Japanese didn't, when they were fighting or trying to protect themselves, they didn't start shooting the prisoners, right?
Well, the prisoner was going to be executed 2 days later. We got word of that. That the scouts had already scouted enough to know that they were setting up, and they were going to execute the 2,700 in there on, I believe now, would have been on a Friday, because I think we jumped on a Wednesday. So Thursday, Friday, 2 days later, he was going to kill them. Well, we did make a mistake. We went in there, and of course, we didn't lose anybody, but we tore the Japs up pretty good. And the 20,000 that I was talking about down at Lake Tall, we didn't stay guarded over them like we should have. We left, got the prisoners and left. That's what we went in for. We should have stayed, because the Japs went into that little town and killed all the people in that town the next day. So we made a mistake there. But war is war. Someone's got to make a mistake. But that wasn't good at all. We could have saved all that if we'd have just stayed 2 more days. Of course, we'd have probably give up a lot of stuff too, but at least we would have tried. So.
Yeah, one of the things that I enjoy in doing all this research for these talks is that was a sad part of the story, because the 511th troops and the regiments within the division that went in did completely wipe out the 250 Japanese troops that were part of the garrison in the camp, and rescued all of the people in the prison camp. And like Lloyd said, the unfortunate aspect of all that was that we left having done the successful part of the raid, and in retribution, of course, for wiping out the garrison and all that, the townspeople did suffer as a result. And again, very unfortunate part of the story. But that's just like many of these war stories, the collateral damage with regard to the civilians in all of these towns and cities, both in the Pacific and in Europe.
So they consider the townspeople as Allied sympathizers? Is that?
Well,
no.
Again, just literally innocent bystanders.
Yeah.
They really had nothing to do with it, except the other aspect of it was part of the invasion group was the Philippine guerrillas that were part of the invasion force that did help in the planning and all that. But so what relation, literally or otherwise, they had with the townsfolks, there probably was some, and that may have had something to do with it as well, but don't know that. Okay, so, but again, unfortunate part of the story.
Now, there's the name that we got, the Angels, in which there's a difference. One of the nurses at Los Baños said she looked up and said, "Seen angels." Now that is really, I think, where we got our name. But a few people has gone back and picked up things and where we was at, what we'd done, and everything. In North Carolina, there's a place called Scotty's, and he had a bar. And we went in to the bar and we first started. And we go in on a Saturday night or Friday night, you know. A drink was 25 cents. Well, we went all through, 25 cents, 25. We got ready to, well, we'd come back out of school. And then he knew he was going to be there for a while and went in there. They went from 25 to 50 cents. Just like that. Well, we all got together and we was going to leave there on New Year's Day, Camp McCall, and go to Camp Polk. So we decided we'd go down to Scotty's, tear the place up. Now that was just in our mind. Nobody else would say. So we went down there and the guys went in sitting around. And you couldn't start an argument any place. Nobody would argue, you know. And there's an armored division in there. We tried that. That didn't work. And DeWirt, which is from Tennessee, he was a case. A guy was sitting at a booth like that. Now the place is full. And he's sitting, evidently, either his wife or girlfriend, it didn't make any difference, you know. And DeWirt walked over and tapped him on the shoulder. And he says, "You don't talk like that in front of a lady." The guy said nothing. Well, that started it. That's what we wanted to do. And that place had a big glass, about 20 feet long, in front of it. We got through. You could walk through there. You walk through the glass. It was all tore up, tables tore up, the whole works. And we went back. We shipped out 2 days later. And our replacements that come over and replace our wounded and stuff like that, they said, "You guys didn't leave Scotty's in very good shape." Well, but then we go down to Camp Polk. Now see where they got us out of that. And I guess the government he tried to sue the government for damages. Didn't make it. We got to Polk and we was down at Lake Charles. And it's Sunday evening. And the last bus going to Leesville was leaving, and all of us loaded on it. And there's 2 guys left. The bus driver closed the door. So we raised the window and drug them through the windows in the back. Well, the driver, he just got up out of the seat, went out the door, and went towards the office. This DeWirt, he just moved up in the seat of the bus. Away we went. There was 4 women on there, and he took them into Leesville and had to come back and go into Polk. We said, well, you know, the MPs will be out, state patrols, everything. That road's going to be closed. And sure enough, before we got to the gate, we seen the armed vehicles across the road. So the word stopped the bus, laid down on the floor. The MPs come up, kicked the door open at 45, said, "Sit where you..." There was nobody sitting there. So they took all of us and threw us in jail. And of course, it wound up that our general come down and got us out. And his thought, he told the base general, he says, "No, you're not court-martialing anybody." He says, "If anything, DeWirt gets a medal for trying to get soldiers back here for reveille." And then we got a bunch of stuff in New Guinea, and the other side of the story is somebody started out that somebody told General Swain he had a bunch of thieves. And General Swain says, "No, I got angels. They wouldn't do anything like that." Yeah. Yes.
I went through basic training in Corporal, and Leesville, Louisiana, was one of the most memorable. Did it have a reputation 20 years earlier? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
If you wanted anything,
yeah.
it was the one city in America. And being at many posts and
Yeah.
overseas, there's no city like Leesville.
That's right. And it was like, you know, you go off the base, turn to right, you went down to Leesville.
And the first time we went in there, one of the drill sergeants said, "You have a better chance of surviving Vietnam than Leesville." Because everybody was armed.
Right.
With knives, guns.
Yeah, something.
And there were women there, and if you were a tough soldier, there were women there who just flat kick your butt. And if they couldn't do that, they'd stab you.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever you went in there financially, you came back to base with zero.
That's right. You know, when we went in, we were going down to take that training because the other places was occupied by going through maneuvers, and we went to Camp Polk. We were supposed to come out of Camp Polk and go to Europe behind the 82nd. And we come out of there and went back to camp after we got through with our maneuvers. And they said, "No, you're not going to Europe. We done so well in the swamps of Louisiana that we'll go to the Pacific."
I think each military base has its cross-the-border city like that. When I was at Fort Benning, Phoenix City, Alabama, was right across the border.
Yep.
Phoenix City had that same reputation like you're talking about with Leedsville.
Yeah, I was in Dix, I was in Benning, I was in one in South Carolina, I think Bliss in Texas and Fort Ord and others, but Leesville, and talking to people over the years, seemed to have the greatest reputation for, I don't know, being degenerate. City.
Well, you know what Phoenix City was nicknamed, don't you?
Sin City.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You fellas must have had a lot different than I had. I was in Camp Claiborne in 1941, and it was pretty calm. It was before the war started. So I didn't have anything but kinds of fire.
I was stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas, 38 months during the Korean thing, and three times in 38 months. And you were much more welcome to go to Junction City one way than you were to go into Manhattan, or maybe to attend church or whatever. I just got the feeling Manhattan was not welcome to the Junction City.
Well, Phoenix City, when we were there going through school, so you went 1 week, would give you the towers, the judo pits, all of that. And then the next week you was in just all kinds of crap. And then the third week you jumped. And they would go to Phoenix City. And that was Sin City. There's no question about that. But I never seen it happen, but they said that guys would go down and to go to school, and they have their boots and they was blousing them, but they didn't have any wings. And it's been said that they've been caught on the bridge going over to Phoenix City. Someone take them down and take the shoes off of them and throw them over in the river.
Wow.
Oh.
It was generation after generation, of just real interesting stuff. And the worst part was weekends coming back and making it back before curfew
Yeah.
on a Sunday night.
Well, now Benning is one place I don't think I ever walked a step in Benning. The 3 weeks I was there, I think I ran all the time. We had to go down jump field, and that's where we took all of our stuff. We had to go back up on the hill for dinner, and when we left down there, went up and had dinner, we had to be back in 30 minutes. Now that means you had to run. I don't think I ever walked. And I had and my basic in North Carolina, though, was kind of funny. It's in a way that we had a 28-mile force march.
Wow.
And our captain said, if there's anybody that wants to furlough, see, that's when we was getting ready to ship out. We got that furlough just before we shipped out. He says, you finish that 28 miles, anybody wants their furlough then, come in, I'll sign it, and you can be on your way. Well, me and 6, 7 other guys, we took off, got back in, went down, took a shower. We'd already laid out our clothes and everything, you know, be ready. And we took a shower, went up, put on our clothes. I had a brand new pair of boots, put them on, and went in. We told the captain we're ready. He wrote it out, and we went down to Hamlet and caught the Silver Meteor out to Pittsburgh. See, because I was going into Indianapolis. And back then, you had a train movement. You had one car, and on that train, there was a chain car. All the seats had chains and locks. So a guy got out a hand, he'd take MPs, take him up, set him in the chair, and lock him in. So we got up and we went down, got our stuff, got on the train, and away we went. Well, after a while, I decided my feet was kind of hurting me a little, new boots, so I took my boots off. And I sat there maybe 30 minutes, and the MP come through, and he had a club in his hand, and he cracked me across the knees. Get them shoes on. So, okay. I tried to put my shoes on, and I was new, and after that march, my feet had swollen. Couldn't get them on. So here the MPs come back through again. He cracked me with that club again. He said, I told you to get them shoes. I said, I can't. My feet swollen, I can't do it. He said, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to get those shoes on. I'll be back. If you don't have them on, you're going down to the car and get locked in. So, 10 minutes passed. I still couldn't get them on. And they come back. Made me get up. So I got up. I'm carrying my boots and everything. Go down. And I sit down in the chair, or in the seat, and they locked the chains in. And I looked up, and coming in the door was about 6 or 7 of the paratroopers. And this one kid walked up and asked him, he said, what are you going to do? He said, well, we're going to put him off the next stop. Yeah, that's where he's going to go. He said, well, I think you forgot something. If he goes off, you go off. They turned around and walked back. Yeah, and told me to go back to sleep. No, but little things like that have happened. You know, you have to laugh about it.
You ever get your boots on?
Oh, yeah. As soon as my feet. But see, I was stupid, actually, to get all new boots and this and that, you know. And why didn't I just use the ones that was broke in and everything like that? What was I going to do with a new pair of boots and going on a furlough? But that's being young, you know. You learn a few things. Anything else?
The lady that labeled you angels,
Uh-huh.
what country did she come from?
The Philippines. She came to our reunion. The last time I seen her, our reunion was in Gettysburg, and she was there. And in fact, if that rescue had done that one dish, there's a guy there that speaks all the time, and you can tell he's from the Philippines, and you will see her in that also when you. And I haven't seen her in our reunion in, I'd say 6, 8 years.
Yeah, they were neat people. They were neat people.
Yeah.
I find that when I run into Vietnamese people, some of them live in boat people, and also Filipino people here in the States, they're all grateful to the veterans.
A lot of them are. Now, I do have a problem, not with the older generation, but I have a problem with some of the younger, and not only them, but you go to a shopping center and it's disrespect. They don't care whether you're there or not. They want to take their part. Now, I'll be very frank. When I see 5 or 6 of them in a line, I just look down in front and make sure my feet's right. But I'm watching their feet too. And when I meet them, yeah, I've done that. So, but they'll just walk over you. A lot of them. And I just said that the younger generation don't respect like we do.
Mm-hmm. I've never experienced that.
Any more questions for Lloyd? I do have one other little trivia thing real quick. And again, this is why I enjoy doing what I do. Everybody know Rod Serling from the Twilight Zone? Rod Serling was in the 11th Airborne Division. Okay? He was in the 511th Paratroop Infantry Regiment and was literally in every one of the campaigns that Lloyd was in. So if you're interested, Google Rod Serling, World War II, 11th Airborne Division, and you'll see his entire bio from when he was in World War II. And so Rod Serling goes back to Takao, Georgia, Camp McCall, Camp Polk, the whole deal. And he won, or was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star while he was in the 11th. Okay? It just absolutely just stumbled over that while I was doing the 11th research. Okay? And it was quite interesting when I actually took the time to then look into his personal bio. And his writings and his radio and TV career after World War II, some of his Twilight Zone episodes and other writings and some of his Emmy Award-winning stuff were as a result of his World War II experiences. I thought that was just fascinating. So there you go. Today's trivia.
One other thing, if you want to look at this, here's some stuff here, and he's gone, right? But that'll give you some of the stuff on that Los Baños, and probably, I know this one is, but anyway, one of these here has got when we invaded Luzon, day by day, what happened all the way through.
Also, the one newspaper makes reference to an author by the name of Bruce Henderson who wrote a book on the raid. And that book is available in any number of bookstores. In fact, I bought that book at Costco back a couple of months ago. And very interesting book, very well done with respect to the raid and all the detail about the raid.
And this paper here is the one I got down at Bragg when I went back down of the colors, the reflagging of our unit is in this here. And it's in this one.
And if I'm not mistaken, Lloyd's in charge of organizing the next 11th Airborne Division reunion, which is going to be next year, right?
Right.
17 in Colorado Springs?
Right.
Okay, so anybody's interested, you can talk to Lloyd about that. And I know that there was a gentleman, I don't think he made it today, that was here last week when we were hosting a local Studebaker car club. And in fact, another little bit of trivia, he was in not only the 127th Engineering Battalion, but also part of the 11th, but he was stationed in Germany in 1956 and 1957 as part of the 11th. And in fact, I'm in contact with him and his son to make sure that he knows about Lloyd's plans for the reunion. So, like I said, that gentleman was here last week. So, anyway, just more small world stuff. Anyway, thank you guys very much for attending.